Hey all, I hope you all are doing great. This is Dr. Jyoti Bala. I welcome you all on my YouTube channel. In this session, we are going to discuss about how you can write your review of literature effectively and smartly, and can you publish a review article from that. So if you are a PhD student, if you are writing a thesis, and if you are a graduate or master's student, if you are writing your project and report and dissertation, in both the scenario, the session will be relevant. So let's start the session. So whether you are a PhD student or if you are a graduate or master's student, depending on your audience and depending on your degree program, the review of literature will vary. See, PhD is a higher degree program, and mostly if I talk about India, usually it takes 5 to 6 years if you are doing your PhD from renowned institute and university. And when we are submitting our PhD thesis, it's really like 150 to 200 pages documentation. So mostly like 40 to 50 pages of your review of literature we usually submit. So depending on your subject also and depending on your topics, the limitations and the pages will vary, but it will be like around 35 to 50 pages. So if you are a PhD student, if you are writing a quality review of literature, depending on your subject, you can very easily get 2 review of literature in terms of publications also if you will systematically work on that part. So very easily you can get 1 or 2 review of literature in terms of publication, I'm saying. If you are a master's and graduation level, depending on whether you are doing many projects or dissertation or 1 year program training, your things will be a bit different. You can write it down like 20 or 25 pages of your review of literature, and then you can convert them into publication for your mini reviews or decent impact factors publication house related review. So in student level things will vary, but if you are a PhD student, you have to work a bit systematically, professionally, and you have to document everything. So we will be discussing both the scenario here. So as we have mentioned that depending on the audience, depending on the degree, depending on the subject and the duration, your review of literature in terms of quality and pages number could vary. So whether you are a PhD student or master or graduation level, the things will vary, but overall the general structure of review of literature will be same. So once you are clear with the your audience, why you are doing that program, why you are writing this thesis and report, and why we are writing this review of literature, then we can plan out how we have to go forward. So as I mentioned, especially for PhD program, your review of literature could be bit lengthy in comparison to your project and dissertations review of literature. So after these things are clear, you have to get the ideas about the topic. Whether you are a PhD student or master graduate student, for your thesis purpose and for your project and dissertation purpose, we know our project, we know what we are doing. So a tentative title should be clear to us also, because based on that only we are going to write our review of literature. So tentative title should be clear to us, why we are doing this project, what could be the relevance of that project. Maybe in 10-15 words we should explain these things. Like in my case, I was doing aptamer project. So what ligands I have chosen? So like I was making glutathione binding aptamer for anti-cancer, breast cancer related project. So these key points should be there, which can convey what I was doing, why I was doing, what could be the relevance of that project. So tentative title should be clear to us first. Once your tentative title is clear, start with your introduction and history and background part, because we are writing this review of literature for third party, for your external. And once we are reading and writing, when we are preparing these things, during that period we also get a lot of ideas, we also get better understanding about our project and thesis and why and what we are doing. So first thing is, suppose someone is working on cancer, virology, aptamer, so we have to give the background and the history of that subject area. Say in my case, aptamer was new things. what are aptamers, how it has been generated, what people has done in that technology, who has discovered that, why they are like what kind of application it has in the market, why I have chosen those things. So first we have to give little bit of background and the history of that subject, so that the third party could get the understanding about your subject in terms of history and background. So anyone who is working on virology projects, so let's take the example of SARS-CoV. So what is the SARS-CoV-2, what kind of disease it is causing, whether it is a DNA virus or RNA virus, what is their genome size, what kind of protein it make, and what is the host pathogen interaction. So all these things we have to mention in the history part. Whenever you are writing review of literature, very crucial point is reading a lot of publications, because we should have the understanding about all the crucial key points, what we are doing, why we are doing, what others has done in that subject area, what could be done in such subject to fill the research gap. So in terms of reading the publications, search and research will be very important. So you have to read a lot of article. I have already made one video where I have given you the tools and the resources and platform which you can utilize for getting these scientific and academic publications. So reading these articles, reviews, editorial will help us to get the better understanding about this topic, why we are doing, what others has done, what are the research gap in this subject area, what we can do in terms of experiments, surveys, analysis to fill these gaps, and how others can utilize this research for their future prospect and future work. So all these rough idea we should have, and in many places you actually have to defend your synopsis. So before starting your PhD, many place a rough idea of your synopsis, a rough idea of your review of literature we should have in terms of draft. The final thesis could look different, because once we start our PhD program, before that we have to submit the synopsis, we have to defend the synopsis. So that could be a pre review of literature, because there you get the understanding about your proposals, your project. And as you are progressing, like second year, third year, fourth year, or the final fifth year, every year you are reading something, every month you are reading, so you can upgrade your that pre review of literature what you have submitted during your synopsis. So that will give you one what idea, like in terms of what you are doing, why you are doing. But as long as you are progressing, you can upgrade this draft, and this could help you to submit your final thesis, the review of literature effectively also, and it will be also modified for your publication purpose. As I mentioned, that review of literature will require a lot of reading and research related to publications about that given topic and what people has already done in that subject area, so we can get the better understanding. So once you are writing a review of literature, say 30, 40, 50 pages, that means you yourself has to read a paper's research article and review article around 150 to 200 sometime. So reading and getting the grasp and memorize everything is not possible. So taking out the notes, and like maybe you can write down the notes, or maybe in the your doc file, or maybe handwritten notes. But whenever you are reading any publications related to this given topics, make sure that you are making certain notes. Suppose in PhD time, not only the broad tentative topic is important, there will be subsection also. Like in my case, I was working on aptamer. Aptamer is generated by Celix, and I was making aptamer against glutathione. Then we will utilize these things for breast cancer. So there are subsections. So make sure that you are making notes, you are documenting and saving these publication and notes subject wise, subsection wise, or maybe you can have separate folders for them. Like in my case, I was having 4 or 5 folders. One was for aptamer, one was for Celix, one was for reactive oxygen species, one for cancer, and one for breast cancer. So in that terms, you can separate your review of literatures and note, so that whenever you are compiling your review of literature, when you are final writing and compiling these things, you will have idea from where you have to get your information. So whenever you are reading the review of literature, make sure that you are separating these things. You are having some ideas about your subsections. Based on that, you can divide your folders, and you are taking the notes of those articles also, which is going to help you while you are really composing your review of literature. And finally, when we are minimizing these things for publication purpose also. Whenever you are writing the review of literature, make sure that we are writing in a way that the third party can understand the review of literature, your project, the significance of your project also. In that way, you have to make a flow of the story also in terms of review of literature, that it should convey the message in a storytelling form, not in like in the literature form, in a scientific way, but it should have certain flow. That like when I was giving you my example, so what is aptamer, what is the application, who has discovered that. So after that, if someone knows like, okay, this is aptamer, this is their application in terms of diagnostic, therapeutic, drug designing, so how we can generate these things. So you can then explain Celix is a protocol by which you can make aptamers. Why we are generating for glutathione, how glutathione is involved with cancer, with our aptamer, how we are going to solve either diagnostic related problem or therapeutics related problem. So it should connect every dot. So we have to make sure there should be some flow and connections of that story. Make sure that you are assigning a significant amount of time for, especially for writing these things. See, in case of PhD, as we are enough of time with us, so we can like, if, whenever you are reading, you are making your notes, so based on that, all the subsection you can start filling out, and you can upgrade depending on the progress with your PhD. But in case of masters and graduate, you have limited time. So in limited period of time also, assign some 10, 15 or 1 month, especially for writing. You cannot write 10, 15 pages in one day. It's better read a little bit of article, get the idea about the subject, have a tentative topic and subsection with you, and based on that, read the article, have the notes, and then start writing, and then re-edit them. So what you could do, you assign the time, start the compilation part, and then fill the sub stories and subsections with your own language, because in many places they will check for plagiarism. It's better whenever you are reading, whenever you are getting the ideas, write in your own scientific way. Very important part in your review of literature will be the diagrams, the flow diagrams, or some statistical data, what you might be using in your thesis and report. So whenever you are taking these figures and data and surveys result from some other sources, make sure that you are taking the permissions and copyright also, because whenever we are submitting these thesis and report in universities and institute, these days they ask for permission and copyright also. And if we have to convert these review of literature for publications, then 110% most of the time we have to submit these things. So it's better you take these permission and copyright. And in many a time, depending on your subjects, you yourself has to make your tables and diagrams. And these days we have a lot of scientific tools for creating these figures and scientific illustration. I have already made few video tutorial how systematically you can make these diagrams and tools, and for my publications what tools I have used. So you can check out that video also. So making your scientific figures, diagram and illustration will be important part of your review of literature. And in case if you are taking from other sources, then please cite from where you have taken. So we have to give the copyright and permission and the information related to the source of your figures and the data. The other very important part is always try to use some reference manager like EndNote or Mendeley, so that it will be easier if you want to convert this review of literature into publications, because many publication house either sometimes they will ask you number wise arrangement of your citations, and sometimes they will ask you for the alphabetical arrangement, and in reference style also there are a few options which we have to convert. So managing everything manually is really tedious, so it's better whenever you are writing your review of literature and if you want to convert them into publication, make sure you are using EndNote or Mendeley or any other such tool so that you can manage all these references and citations. So once you are having the idea or the initial draft, suppose you know the tentative titles, you got the ideas about your subject, why you are doing this research, you know the subsections, and you have written your initial draft. Make sure that you are giving this draft to your supervisor, to your senior or some other mentors who are having similar research experience, so that they can read it once or twice, and based on that they can give you critical feedback to improvise that review of literature, and based on that you can modify and upgrade these things. If other information is required, you can add on. If something has to be omitted, you can omit. So getting a critical feedback from your mentors and seniors will help you, so that could be utilized to improvise your draft for the final review of literature. Suppose you have done with your review of literature for your thesis purpose and report and dissertation purpose. As I mentioned, depending on your degree, depending on your program, the pages and the quality could vary. But finally, suppose you have your first initial draft with the feedback and everything you have improvised, so you might be having this review of literature around like 30 pages, 35, 40 pages, and if you are from dissertation and project, it could be around 20-25 pages. Now if you want to convert them into the publication, make sure depending on your broad topic you have to minimize these things, because see, depending on the review like journal houses, we have to submit this review of article around 20-25 pages, sometime only 15 to 16 pages, so there are word limitations also. So now we have our data in terms of 30-35 pages or 20-25 pages, but if you have to convert them for publication purpose, maybe for your PhD PhD review of literature, you can get 1 or 2 review of literature, and from your dissertation and project you can get 1 review of literature. So you have to actually convert this review of literature into very systematically, scientifically summarized form. So you just have to you just make sure that you are concluding everything scientifically. You have to narrow down the language so that you can get around 15 to 20 pages of summary of this whole story, where you have the tentative titles, you have the introduction, you have your history and background, you are letting us know about the significance of the subject areas, what are the research gap, how it could be filled with new or different technology, what could be the conclusion, and what could be the future prospect. So once everything is connected, you can narrow down everything, and depending on your subject area you can choose the research article and journal house, and then submit these things for your publications. And make sure that you are using reference manager, you are using scientific tools like biorenders and new advanced tools which are already freely available for scientific community and for academic purpose. So make sure you are utilizing such tools. So to summarize everything, whenever you are writing a review of literature, whether at PhD level or at student, masters and graduation level, make sure that you should know the tentative title of your projects and degrees, so that you know your subject areas and you know that we have to read a lot of publication related to that broad area, so you can narrow down what we have to read. And whenever you are reading these review of literature articles, make sure that you are making certain notes, whether in doc or hand notes, that is completely your choice. And based on that, when you are writing your review of literature by utilizing these notes, make sure that it is in the flow. It should convey the story and the significance of your project and research interest and research areas. So use these notes, and whenever you are organizing and writing these things, make sure you have different folders for assign topics and subsections, so it is going to help you also. And whenever you are writing review of literature, make sure that you are using advanced tools also for your graphical, for diagram, table generations also, and also for the reference manager if you are using EndNote or Mendeley, so you can arrange and you can manage your citation very easily. These days, for creation of diagram, for making these notes, there are a lot of tools and apps available. You can utilize these things. And finally, when you are done with your review of literature, critical feedback and final edition, make sure that you are concluding this review of literature and converting them into the research publication purpose. If you have any queries or if you have any questions, you can contact me. I would be more than happy to revert back. I hope you have liked the session and found this information relevant. Kindly like and subscribe the channel, and do share these information among your scientific endeavors. Thank you.